Hey, I'm Paul Krismer. I'm your happiness expert, and I'm coming to you from Porterville, California. And just behind me is the river that runs right through the middle of this town that has super flooded this year. After a decade of drought, California is swimming in water, if I could say it that way. It's laughable and it's tragic for some people, but they sure needed the water, and the snowpack is still huge in the mountains around here. There's a lot of water coming down. Yay, California. Hey, this week I want to talk to you about emotional intelligence and one specific little aspect of it, and that is self-awareness. Emotional intelligence is a huge predictor for both happiness and for success in life. And there was an interesting statistic I heard today that 36% of people can't recognize and identify the emotion that they're experiencing, which is just kind of fundamental to being able to navigate our emotional lives. And remember that almost everything we experience happens in our hindbrain, in our limbic system first, where we experience an emotion, and then later we become cognizant. We think about it. We have thoughts related to it. It's why most of our decisions are emotionally based, and then we rationalize them after the fact. So self-awareness of emotions is hugely important for our relationships, for our own self-awareness, for our growth in life, and for our happiness and ultimately our success. So this video is going to talk a little bit about a very specific exercise that's proven to increase people's emotional awareness, their self-awareness, and therefore become a building block to greater emotional intelligence. So stay tuned, it's coming right up.
As international public speakers and best-selling authors, stay tuned to hear Paul and Jackson teach the practical science behind happiness and success.
Yeah, so there's these amazing research that's been done on emotional intelligence really over the last 25 to 30 years, but the research is accelerating and we're learning more and more and more about what makes us successful, not just in terms of kind of the career and income and all that kind of stuff, but the discipline, the motivation, the self-regulation that keeps our relationships going well, that helps us achieve the goals that are important to us, that are just fundamental to our well-being. And there's one very simple technique that I want to show you here today. And I think anyone can benefit from it, even people who are quite self-aware already. And that's to have a random times set up in your phone or some other calendarized way of reminding you, where 4 or 5 times a day you get a little alert to say, what are you feeling? And then the exercise is to stop everything that you're doing and become aware. And hopefully it's not frustration saying, why am I getting interrupted by this alert? But let's assume that we go one step back from the interruption that's experienced and say, what was I doing when this interruption or this reminder came to me? And what was I feeling? And maybe it's something that you'll be well aware of. And if that's true for you, then look for nuances. If there was a second emotion. So for example, I've been traveling today and enjoying my curiosities, taking me to all kinds of wonderful, fun places. But I'm enjoying it. I'm having fun. And then there's another little element that I want someone to share it with. So there's an aspect of loneliness, which I often feel when I'm on the road. But I can see these nuances. One predominant emotion and another emotion underneath it. So if that's you, if you see an emotion readily and say, I know what I'm feeling, then investigate more deeply. And if you don't recognize any emotion at all, don't know what you're feeling, well, then there's some obvious pause there. And we need to think in a thoughtful way. Well, what are we feeling? And I've said this before, we're basically feeling our emotions from our chin to our crotch. There's somewhere they're embodied. I can feel a tightness in my throat or an expansiveness in my chest or something in my gut. We feel our emotions in our bodies. And if that doesn't help you identify your emotion, maybe you can say, if I were to describe my emotion with a color, what color would it be? Or if my emotion were an animal, what animal would it be? And these different ways of trying to key into something that often feels intangible can get our brains identifying with what's going on in our body and our emotions and maybe the language that most readily comes to us. And then we can say, oh yeah, that's what I'm feeling. And that exercise in and of itself is brilliant. It makes us aware of what's actually navigating our lives or dictating our lives. It's our emotional well-being that is key to successful lives, and it's also emotional wellness when it's not well and not doing so well. It's the thing that deteriorates our life, and so we have to be aware of the emotions in order to kind of manage them. And of course, I've talked about this a million times before, but any kind of mindfulness practice, yoga, meditation, breathing exercises, you name it, they are another basic pause try to get our minds to quiet long enough to experience what's going on elsewhere in our experiential existence on earth, including our emotions, and then we go, oh, okay, that's what I'm feeling. And if we do this exercise, 4 or 5 reminders every day for a couple weeks, and you do it dutifully, I promise you at the end of those 2 weeks, you'll become more emotionally aware. And if you keep practicing as you just go through your day-to-day life, these are skills that can grow. And one of the most critical skills in the whole array of skill sets that emotional intelligence is all about is that self-awareness piece. And this very simple exercise will help carry you along no matter how great your emotional intelligence is presently. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye for now.